20 people packed into the Rhino Bar in Parkdale, dressed up as cowboys and Indians. This man, one of the people in attendance, says it wasn't meant as a racist comment.
I just want to set the record straight on saying that in no shape or form was this meant and was this thought of in any way to racist in any shape or form. That was not what was planned. That was not our hearts. We're just looking to have a fun night.
The bar has distanced itself from the 20 men in costume, saying they were deeply troubled by the act and said they were in no way part of organizing the event. For more news, you can check out our website, newstalk1010.com. We just were. What do you make of this? I don't know where to start.
Okay, there's a local bar in Parkdale. Have you ever been to the Rhino in Parkdale? I have been to the Rhino. What's it like? Is it hipster? Is it pretty hipster, but it's very laid back. It's not quite divey, large, a little rough around the edges. They have a great beer selection and reasonable priced drinks as well. So it's a decent establishment. I enjoy this place. Could I go in and get myself a... Although you might want to punch a few people. Could I get myself a nice cold Coors Light, sit down and watch the NASCAR? Sure they have Coors Light. I don't remember how many TV screens they had. I see, there you go. You lost me. But they have every beer under the sun. I like to keep my beer under the sun, John. It gets warm there. Clever, right? Thanks. So anyway, they had a little bit of... this isn't even... I should state this off the top. This was not held by the bar. No. That's the bar. They had a party. A couple people decided to get together. You know how you would for Halloween, or you've got somebody's birthday you're celebrating. Maybe you've got a theme going on. Sure. In this case, like wenches and masters. You been to a party like that? Kind of sounds kinky. Wenches and masters party. There'd be wenches and knights or something. Dukes and... Yeah, I was just thinking like medieval times. Lords and ladies. Yeah, sure. How about lords and ladies? Yeah, we'll go with that. Anyway, these guys and girls decided to get together and have a Cowboys and Indians night. I've got some pictures here. There's a guy... Wait a second. Are we talking football or baseball? I'm confused. Well, technically it would be football, but in no way, shape, or form do these people look like football fans. In fact, they just dressed up as what we would typically, back in the day when it was politically correct to play this game, dressed up as cowboys and Indians. One guy looks like the logo of the Washington Redskins football team. Right. I'm still allowed to even say that. I'm so confused as to what I'm allowed to say in this story. You're allowed to say Indians when you're talking about American Indian, because that's okay. And that seemingly is who they're... Although we do still have the Indian affairs, don't we? I have trouble with that. Anyhow, then the ladies dressed like, if I'm allowed to say this, like you would see in a Pocahontas movie. Is that okay? Is that a historical term? Does that mean you can't dress as Pocahontas for Halloween? I don't know. Anyhow, the guys had some face paint on. I'm guessing the cowboy part was not offensive to anybody. Because I've been a cowboy for Halloween many times, because it's easy. I've got the stuff in the closet. And no one has ever taken offense to my costume. They could, though. I mean, you think about it, the mortal enemies of the Native American people were the settlers who came in and tried to settle around what would be traditionally considered their land. Sure. But cowboys still exist in today's world. If you're a farmhand or somebody out there on the ranch, it's responsible because one of the most famous cowboys, huge promoter of tobacco, so that's just completely inappropriate. Are you going to fight me on every... A lot of cowboys are from Texas. Texas has serious problems when it comes to... so anyway, there's rights of prisoners. 20 people. Yeah, they're going to kill a woman. Executions and... Did you hear that? Yep. Anyway. Yeah, not the issue. Okay. Party had 20 people in it, so there were people dressed in cowboy hats, headdresses, plastic tomahawks. They gathered at the Rhino restaurant and bar Saturday night to commemorate his double birthday. Another patron spotted the party and sent an alert out on Twitter. And... the tweet read, "There are people actually dressed as cowboys and Indians, face paint and feathers." As the message gained ground on the Twitterverse, users bombarded the bar's Twitter feed with accusations that they were housing a racist party, and people then threatened to boycott the bar. Soon, the online rage took to the streets, and activists began trickling into the restaurant to express only in Toronto does this kind of stuff happen, to express their horror in person, including one man who reportedly hopped a $30 cab ride to get there as soon as possible, because moral indignation does not know any time restraints. You have to get there. Or you want to be the first to chastise somebody for being politically incorrect. Or a transportation budget, apparently. Somebody said they're not kids and they're clearly old enough to know the difference between what's appropriating someone's culture and what's mocking someone's culture, said Jeff Hardy, a member of the group who arrived at the establishment just after midnight. It's pretty awful. Anyway, there were people as far away as the UK saying that this kind of thing was inappropriate. I'll throw it over to you, my first and last bastion of political correctness on this show. I guess the one question I ask myself, is this something I would do? Probably not. But I do have to ask the question on appropriating one's culture. How is that offensive? I mean, I know it comes up at Halloween all the time. Dressing like a geisha, apparently inappropriate. Dressing like Pocahontas, apparently inappropriate. Dressing like a witch, inappropriate. Basically pretending to be something, a group, a person, a race that you're not, is appropriating one's culture. Does that denigrate the culture? If you're mocking in the way you do it, then yes, I guess you are. Okay. All of that said, though, are these people necessarily mocking? Even if they are. Last I looked, we live in a country that is as great as Canada, which is a democracy, which houses something that is called free speech. If I want to stand somewhere at a bar with 19 of my friends dressed as an Indian, then I should have every right to do so. When you say Indian, you mean native, or are you talking like Gandhi? Just like this. Okay. In this circumstance, with the face paints and the feathers and the whole bit. If you want to be offended, too damn bad for you. Be offended. But to boycott bars that have nothing to do with it, all because somebody wants to have a birthday party and have a little fun. I mean, remember we had this conversation about the guy who did I guess it was the blackface, and they had the noose and the whole bit, or another person who dressed up as a Nazi? Why do we get so hell-bent and bent out of shape on these things when it's just people being people? The thing is, the person who dresses like the Nazi, go ahead and dress like a Nazi. I'll judge you for it. Just like anyone... Just judge this person for it. You're going to drive down, spend $30 to say you're offended? You're an idiot. Say, oh, well... I'm offended to be sharing another beer with you, if that's the case. This is... Because, based on the indignation, can we not be offended that the person dressing like the cowboy is denigrating cowboy culture? You can't find a reason to be offended by this, can you? I'm just saying I probably wouldn't do it myself. Okay. But... Because you wouldn't. Okay. The thing is, depending on the way they're behaving, that could definitely play into it. But the idea that a posse shows up to start chastising these people, give me a break, folks. Don't denigrate posses. Get something better to do with your lives than be offended in a place where we have free speech. You can do whatever you want in Canada. That's the beauty of it. But the more that we have people like this continuously protest, the less and less that we're going to have any rights to do anything. I don't know about that. They have a right to tell you... The guy took a $30 cab ride to come tell this guy he was an idiot, and he had the right to do that. Sure he did, and I have the right to call the bonehead for doing it. All right. Beautiful country we live in for that. Star Talk, star 8255. You can text us at 71010. You can email the show, friendlyfire@astral.com. When we come back, one individual who wasn't as offended and one who was quite offended is going to join us and talk about this. It's Friendly Fire, Ryan Dole, John Dance Live, In-Depth Radio, News Talk 1010. Quite frankly, and some people even came down to the event to confront these people who were quote-unquote being racist. One of the people who's very upset about this, Andrea Houston, who works at Extra Magazine, a bi, gay, lesbian, I'm just going to do the whole I can't do it all, but The Weekly, and I'd never get through it, Andrea.
You can just call us for clear paper.
Okay, let's do that. Thanks for taking the names out for him. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it's much easier that way.
Also, Robin Urbach actually wrote this story up in BlogT.O. Took kind of a lighter approach. I guess she seemed to think too big a deal was being made of it. And now her name is being thrown around by Andrea and the like. So let me ask Andrea first, and we'll get Robin in here in a second. Andrea, what is quote-unquote racist about dressing up as an Indian?
Okay, well, here's the thing. A culture that has spent the past 200 years oppressing and exploiting another culture doesn't get to dress up and mock that oppressed culture. It just doesn't. It's always racism. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the partygoers themselves are racist. As reports have noticed, when First Nations activists arrived at the bar, they actually spoke to some of them and said that this might be problematic and you may want to rethink this. And some of them actually did remove their costumes. That is something that conversation happened, and they realized why it was inappropriate. But this is precisely why it's upsetting, because, Iowa more not taught us anything. It's most certainly not just a costume, and not recognizing the carelessness of this racism displays an astounding lack of understanding of Canada's First Nations people, not just by people who read these stories and commented under them, but journalists who have been writing about it.
Robin, well, you're a journalist. I'm going to have you you reply here instead of me, because I'm just going to bite my tongue, which is rare. But I'm going to hope you're going to shower us with some common sense. Savor the moment.
Well, I will try. I mean, you know what? I have to say that I do agree with a lot of what Andrea said, and that is, it's not the smartest thing, especially when you see all the, pop stars or whoever dressing up as Native this and that, and they're ostracized publicly for it. So it's sort of remarkable to see that people still sort of don't understand the cultural implications of dressing up as another culture. So I think, it is a bit insensitive. It's short-sighted. It's definitely not the smartest thing to do. That being said, I don't, and I can't remember if it was John or Ryan, someone mentioned it earlier, that I don't think it necessarily denigrates the culture just to put on a costume. And I don't think that these people, especially in talking to them, and some of them have commented since the story broke, I really don't think that they were trying to implicate, the supposed inferiority of Aboriginals. I really do believe, and perhaps it's me being naive or optimistic or whatever you want to call it, that they really were just putting on a costume. Was it insensitive? Of course. Was it short-sighted? Yes. I don't think it merits a $30 cab ride across the city to tell the people how wrong they are.
So why do we want to be insensitive to people?
But Andrea, that's what I want to ask you, though. I want to ask about the insensitivity aspect, because
we be respectful of other people.
But what's the difference between emulating a culture and being disrespectful to a culture?
Because this is essentially delegitimizing it. So,
why? Why is it any less legitimate that someone dressed up in this costume?
Because there isn't just one portrayal of Native people. Native culture is vast.
So it would have been better. It would have been better had they mixed it up a little and represented all First Nations people. I mean, come on.
No, how is this any different than blackface? How is this any different than that?
You know what? You've got a right to do that too in this country. And while not many people.
Hate speech. You don't have a right.
I don't know. There's a thing called free speech, Andrea. You want to look into it a little bit. You have a right to do whatever you want in this country as far as dressing up and being inappropriate. And other people have the right to look at you and think that you're a moron. That's sort of how the system works.
Just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean you should do something.
But I think the problem is who can say what people should or should not do. Two different people can look at the situation. One person will say that was incredibly racist, these people should have been marched out of the bar, and other people will look at it and say, it was just a costume. The problem is there's all these people who are self-appointed sort of police of what's acceptable and what isn't, and I think that becomes very murky territory. Who's to say what's acceptable and what isn't, and what's incredibly outrageous and what's just a little bit insensitive?
Andrew, just